For quite a while, I thought that AI image generation was just not really useful. I mean, sure, it looks fun to generate a picture of a skateboarding penguin or a Studio Ghibli version of yourself, but I really didn't see any use for me, my clients, or my business. But I think just in the past few months, we just got to the point where it is business ready. There are some practical use cases for these AI image generation tools, and you can actually implement that today. So I put together 8 not so obvious ways for us service providers to use AI images. Okay, so for these, I'm going to use Gemini and ChatGPT. I don't want to overcomplicate it with things like Midjourney, Flux, and the other ones out there. I'm just going to keep it simple with the ones that you should probably use every day. ChatGPT, Gemini are going to be doing the job just fine. Okay, so the first use cases for you guys is going to be to help clients visualize what you're talking about. Sometimes, if you've been doing this for a while, you talk to a client and in your head, it's perfectly clear. You know exactly what you're talking about. You have the plan, you have exactly the flow. But for the clients, if it's the first time that they work with you or that they work on these specific things, they might not be able to quite see it yet. And that would be where an AI image can do a really good job at, again, putting an image to the words and help the client visualize what you're talking about here. Okay, so for example, let's say that you help people with their marketing and their funnels. And particularly, you want a visual for what is a webinar funnel, how does it work, and you want to put an image to the words and show the clients exactly what it means. So this is the first prompt that I put there, and the first result wasn't quite what I was expected. I wanted more of a flow, just showing the sequential steps of a webinar funnel. So from the first step, step 2, step 3, which is not quite what I was getting here in the first prompt. So after reprompting, then I got exactly what I wanted with the first step, the second step, and a beautiful, simple graphic to show exactly what I meant. That would speak 1,000 words to your clients. They would understand this a lot better than me trying to describe it. Or if I was trying to, draw it on a piece of paper and then show it to them. I don't draw quite well, so it wouldn't look quite as clear as an image like this. So again, this takes 30 seconds. It helps the clients visualize. It brings a ton of value, and it's just very simple. Okay, so the next one is going to be to better your profile picture. Now, I don't recommend to just use, you see some demos out there and you see someone putting a very bad picture of them, and then you ask the AI to create a professional version of that picture. I don't like it. I think it looks kind of fake. I think a lot of time the AI is going to sort of change your face, and it's not good. So what I'm using it here for is that I already have a good professional picture of myself. I just want to change the background to something a bit more bright because, on social media or elsewhere, it just kind of pops out a bit more if I have a more contrasting background. So this is a use case for which I think ChatGPT is still not doing quite a good job. So what you'll see in this example, this is sort of but if you ask it to change the background, it's also going to, for some reason, it's going to affect my face. And now I look like some kind of robot. And so I wouldn't use this profile picture. So this is something that Gemini does a little bit of a better job here. So same prompt, same picture, but this time it kind of caught me out. There would be a couple of adjustments that I need to make here, but it did a lot of the legwork. And again, it didn't change my face. And that would be something that I can probably use, just crop it again, and I would be good to go. What I want you to understand here is that this is for the people like me or you that not necessarily have design skills. So sometimes you may be good in Canva, but this might take you hours. And these AI tools can just help you do it a lot quicker, a lot better, and without wasting too much time. And so this next example is about any kind of graphic that you may have in your head that you would want a graphic designer to do, or that maybe the AI can do itself, depending on how complex it is. And again, just having a starting point, because sometimes you have the image in your head, but having an actual example of what you want is a better start. So here I'm taking the example of a website, and maybe you have drawn it on a piece of paper. Maybe you've quickly just described what you have in mind. Maybe you just added a couple examples of other websites as an example, and then you just prompting the AI to create something that is your own and something you can pass on to a graphic designer or a website builder. So in this example, pretty simple prompt. You can go a bit more in depth with it if you want, but I just took an example of a website and asked to change the colors to potential branding that you could have, whether that's green, yellow. And they did a pretty good job. I think, again, what it does better now is just sort of the text, which should be very wonky. And now it does a much better job at that. You could reprompt again several times just to add maybe more texture to the background or to change some of the words. But this would be something that you can easily then pass on to a website designer, and they could go ahead and build the website. But again, any graphic that you may have in mind, whether that's for your website, whether that's for your marketing campaigns, your creatives, your social posts, anything that requires some kind of graphics, you can have a pretty good mock-up to then pass on to an actual graphic designer. Although sometimes you can just use a graphic that AI generates itself. I don't recommend it most of the time, but sometimes it might just be good enough to go ahead and post it. That's a really good way to use AI in your business. And so this next one is really a more specific example of this. So this would be about putting together a brand mood board for you or your clients. And again, that's something that if you're not a graphic designer, if you're not really good with colors and that kind of stuff, it's kind of hard to come up with even just a first version to give to someone to actually put together the final version. So this will allow you to put a few images together that represent your brand, and then allow the AI to put this together. This prompt that I had here is pretty simple. You can go a bit more in depth if you wanted to. You probably should. And that would allow you to come up with pretty good looking colors that come well together. Usually what you have is part of a brand as well. Just branding guidelines. You have not just images, colors, but also logo, assets, font, just sort of an ecosystem for your brand. And that's, again, something that the AI can do a pretty good job at taking out of your brain, putting it on the computer, and that gets you to about 80% of it, and then you pass it on to someone that can take it all the way home. Okay, so the next one is definitely in the not so obvious ways to use AI images, but I'm talking about meme creations. And I know that if you're a business coach or in a more formal niche, you might scoff at this and disregard it as something that's not for you, but I think you'd be missing out. Because I do think that today in 2025, it's definitely appropriate for most businesses to use memes as part of their content, just to add a light touch to content and do something a bit more relatable than just the boilerplate, boring business kind of content and images that you're used to see out there. But obviously it was kind of difficult for non-graphic designer people to create those. So I think AI images can do a really good job here. So in this example, I use this in my newsletter. I wanted to talk about AI browser agents. And I took a very popular meme type. I had already other captions on it, and I just asked it to change it to something that would fit for me. So that was the result that it gave me. I could probably reprompt it a few times if I wanted a different icon or different things, but for me, it was totally usable in my newsletter. And again, that's just a great way for you to create content pretty quickly. You just give it the original meme, ask it for the things that you want to replace it with, and it will do a pretty good job. This next one is going to be for mostly presentation. You can use it in your online programs if you have that, but I think it works really well from a text to an image. Sometimes if you want to break it down, so whether that's from a slide or a PowerPoint, or if it's within a newsletter, that's mostly how I use it. But what I'm talking about here is Napkin AI. So again, here I'm actually taking you outside of ChatGPT or Gemini. Napkin AI does a really good job at doing that. So when you have a text here and you're thinking, well, it's a bit long, after this, I want to kind of break it out with an image that represents what I'm talking about just before. So I want something that's related to this big ass text here. So I would just go in here and ask Napkin to come up with an image. Another tool that do it pretty well is Gamma AI. So it's a really good tool for putting together presentations. I just think that the image generation, I don't know which model they're using, but I think the AI image generation in Gamma is just not quite great. So I like to replace it with either things that I create in ChatGPT or in Napkin AI right here. And what I like about Napkin AI is that it's going to come up with a picture and give you quite a few variations to pick from. So again, here, don't focus too much on the things that it's actually saying because I just picked a random piece of text, but it's going to give you a few options for this. This actually would be a pretty good one. And then within this example, you can have different variation of the same graphic. So if you want a different type, you can just go through and easily pick a new graphic. Again, it's not a groundbreaking graphic, but it's an easy thing to create as part of the newsletter, as part of a presentation, as part of a blog, just to put a picture to the text and make it look a lot less boring in just about 5 seconds of your time. And I want to stop here and just make you realize that, again, we have so many places in our business where graphics and simple just images that we could create with AI can have a massive impact, even if it's not client facing, even if it's not 100% perfect. We have all of those places where graphics are fitting in really well, and we can have something very quickly created, very professional looking to some degree with AI. And that's the kind of way that I want to use AI. It's not going to be to replace a graphic designer when you actually need one. It's just going to be to make your life a lot easier when it comes to creating graphics. If you're struggling with Canva or Photoshop right now, that's just a really good alternative to do something really quickly, pretty well in just a few seconds. So that's the kind of use cases that I'm focusing on right now. Again, we're not replacing graphic designers just yet, but we're getting to a point where we can be pretty dangerous with just a few prompts. This next use cases is one that I've seen around social media quite a lot with the new ChatGPT model, and that's going to be to turn a drawing, something that you have on a piece of paper, into an actual image. In this case, this would be for a thumbnail, whether that's a YouTube video thumbnail, or if you have an online course, that would be for your online course videos thumbnails. Again, just another example of a graphic that could take a lot of hours and is not super important, and AI can really help you here. So and here, as you can see, this drawing here of a thumbnail was turned into this really nice picture that you could probably use for a YouTube video thumbnail. Now, I personally wouldn't do do it because I like to have just a real image of myself on a thumbnail. But again, depending on where you have those graphics, it could be a lot useful. Okay, and this last one is going to be about lead magnet covers or book covers. These kind of graphics that really add an extra something on a sales page. And that's something that used to take me hours to create for clients. And now that can be done pretty easily, pretty well with AI. So we have the initial graphic here that, again, you can probably have AI create something pretty close to this, but if you have an actual graphic designer that gives you something like this, that would work as well. Again, you could probably prompt the AI to create something pretty close to this and then turn this into an actual lead magnet cover in an iPad. That was the prompt that I had here. And that would create this thing that, again, would have taken hours of my time before and now can be done pretty quickly. So that's another good use case to have an image that you start with and then embed that image somewhere else. Again, here in this example, it's in a device, but it can be on a book cover. It can be on a TV screen. But again, those graphics can really add something to your sales page or presentation, just a piece of content marketing that you have. And again, something very simple that AI does pretty well at this stage. And that's the last use case that I had for you today. Again, I want you to start thinking about different ways that you can use graphics that are not super important, but you still need to make in your business, and ways to put words into an image for you, for your clients, for your business. That's really what I want you to start thinking about. If you're looking for more quick wins and things you can implement today in your business using AI and AI automations, I made a ranking of the top AI automations category that you should focus on. And if you just want a weekly quick tips AI automations for coaches in your inbox, then go ahead and subscribe to my free newsletter. That's going to be in the description. Thank you for watching, and I'll talk to you next time.